You know, ladies and gentlemen, the President Trump is going to wind up being one of the greatest ones we've ever had. But the media won't acknowledge that. The Democrats won't acknowledge it. They think he's illegitimate, he's illegal, he shouldn't have been president, Hillary Clinton should have been president, and they're not going to acknowledge that he's got any intelligence at all. And it's unbelievable, the attacks that come against him. And when he defends himself, that doesn't look as good as it ought to. But the truth is, he's going to come out to be one of the most successful and the best presidents we've ever had. You mark my word and see what's there.
Well, he has been under attack lately, and the latest attacks against the president come as he's working with congressional Republicans on a very ambitious agenda for the new year. Jenna Browder brings us the story from Washington.
President Trump and his inner circle spent the weekend pushing back against negative allegations in the new controversial book, Fire and Fury. In the book, former White House chief strategist Steve Bannon uses the words treasonous and unpatriotic to describe a 2016 meeting between Donald Trump Jr. and other campaign officials with a Russian lawyer promising dirt on Hillary Clinton. Bannon apologized in a statement to the news website Axios Sunday. Donald Trump Jr. is both a patriot and a good man. My support is also unwavering for the president and his agenda. The president blames Bannon for giving White House access to Wolf.
I guess Sloppy Steve brought him into the White House quite a bit, and it was one of those things. That's why Sloppy Steve is now looking for a job.
Wolf also questions the mental stability of Trump and claims Bannon and others brought up the 25th Amendment, which can remove a president from office.
And it's not unreasonable to say this is 25th Amendment kind of stuff.
Trump pushed back on Twitter. Actually, throughout my life, my two greatest assets have been mental stability and being, like, really smart. And Trump officials say it's ridiculous to question his fitness for office.
The president said he is a stable genius. Is he?
I'm with the president nearly every day. We engage in complex conversations about some of the most weighty matters facing the world.
All of this as Trump met with Republican congressional leaders at Camp David to talk about their agenda for the upcoming year, which includes getting a budget passed, strengthening the military, infrastructure, a border wall, and immigration. Trump is urging Democrats to support immigration measures in exchange for the dealing with the end of the temporary amnesty for Dreamers and funding for that border wall. The book's charges may be the headlines for the short term, but long term, the president and congressional leaders are focused on their agenda and the upcoming midterm elections. In Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Well, thank you, Jenna. Ladies and gentlemen, this Wolf is unbelievable. He's finally admitted. He said, look, a lot of that stuff in my book isn't true. He admitted it. He just has a bunch of lies in there. He just picks up all kinds of rumors, cobbles it together, throws this book out with a sensational headline, and tries to, well, he'll sell a bunch of books and he'll make some money. That's what they're out to do. But he has no credibility whatsoever, and for anybody to take that stuff seriously is just nuts. But that's what we have in our society today. Well, in other news, the East Coast is finally getting some relief from brutally cold temperatures. And I'm telling you, here in Virginia Beach, it has been extraordinarily cold, extraordinarily icy, and, you know, we're not over it yet. Ephraim Graham has the story.
Well, Pat, it is beginning to warm up, so hopefully by the end of the week, temperatures could climb into the 50s. The cold that came with the winter storm has broken records from Maine to West Virginia, and it brought a great deal of snow from the south to New England. The Charleston, South Carolina airport shut down because of a lack of snow removal equipment.
We're not equipped like you would be, say, in Boston. You know, we expect this kind of weather maybe once every 10 years.
In Virginia Beach, Operation Blessing's U.S. disaster relief team spent the weekend helping people in dire situations all across the Hampton Roads area to get life-sustaining treatments. Hundreds of people needed dialysis, chemo, or were nurses who needed clear paths to care for patients with open wounds. Operation Blessing even sent out a snowplow to make a clear path for ambulances. In all, the Operation Blessing's Emergency Center received more than 700 calls this weekend alone. Pat?
Well, one of those calls, and since it wasn't Operation Blessing, but it was Gordon, he couldn't get in on this program on Friday because his driveway was just snowed in. He couldn't get out. So I was glad to be here. And we have people that stay in the Founders Inn, fortunately, so that they're on hand so we can go on the air. But we've had some interesting, and there's still a lot of ice. The roads are very impassable. Schools all over this area are closed up. A lot of installations are closed up. Courts are closed up. Military installations closed or part closed. So anyhow, it's the way it is. Ephraim.
Pat, turning now to Washington, Attorney General Jeff Sessions is coming under fire, this time from fellow Republicans. Two leaders of the conservative House Freedom Caucus, Mark Meadows and Jim Jordan, say Sessions should resign. They wrote a column Friday saying he's lost control of the Justice Department and the FBI. President Trump has criticized Sessions for recusing himself from the Justice Department's investigation into the Russian interference in the presidential election. But the Hill newspaper reports Sessions isn't expected to resign. With the Senate so closely divided, it will be hard to confirm a successor, as Democrats say replacing Sessions would amount to the interference in the Russia investigation. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he completely agrees with President Trump and his criticism of UNRWA, the United Nations Relief Workers Agency, which helps Palestinian refugees. At his weekly cabinet meeting, Netanyahu said UNRWA actually perpetuates the refugees' problems. And he suggested a solution to the U.S., that American aid go to the bigger UN program, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees.
I offered a simple suggestion, that the funds to UNRWA will be gradually transferred to support the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, with clear criteria to support real refugee status, and not with fictitious refugee status as it happens today under UNRWA. And this position was also presented to the U.S.
UNRWA was established 70 years ago just for Palestinian refugees, instead of allowing the UN body that cares for every other refugee in the world to deal with them. Netanyahu said it creates a situation where even the great-grandchildren of refugees are receiving benefits as if they're refugees. Pat?
Well, I mentioned about this the other day, and I'll say it again. This is a disaster. Right after the beginning of that war, what happened was the Arabs, Palestinians, were told, leave your homes and you will come back very shortly, just as soon as we have defeated the Israelis and destroyed their country. Well, there was an attack by the Arabs against the Jews, but the Jews fought so hard that they were actually prevailed and they won the war. So here is this agency that was set up to make sure that they had a, quote, right of return. Well, they have kept these Palestinians in refugee camps as homeless wanderers for decades. It has been an outrage that they have done this. These people could have been resettled throughout the Arab world. There's plenty of land for Arabs, plenty of space for them. But no, the UN was spending money year after year after year in this so-called United Nations Works Agency. It was UNRWA. It's absurd. And it should be defunded. It should be disbanded. And what the president said is right. And people who know the situation have been calling on it for years. And I'm glad the Prime Minister of Israel has said the same thing. And there is a High Commissioner for Refugees. If there is a need, they can take care of it. But this particular agency has maintained the fiction that these Palestinians are going back to their home, and that now 3 generations are entitled to go back to the land that they left voluntarily when that war started. So anyhow, it's good that we're finally thinking about it, and it should just cut the pipeline, take the money away. Well, there's something else. We've been talking on this program, as you know, year after year after year about what is healthy and what isn't. Well, the U.S. News and World Report has got a list, and Ephraim has that story.
Well, Pat, if you want to stay healthy, U.S. News and World Report has put together a list of the best and worst diets for the new year. The DASH diet and the Mediterranean diet tied for first place. Now, the DASH diet is aimed at preventing and lowering high blood pressure. It focuses on fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean protein, and low-fat dairy. The Mediterranean diet can include weight loss, heart and brain health, cancer prevention, and preventing and controlling diabetes. It includes a diet low in red meat, sugar, and saturated fat, and high in produce, nuts, and other healthy foods. And Pat, we've heard it from you before. You are a lover of nuts.
Nuts and berries, micronutrients, so good for you.